Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Go Premanandi. Wonderful to see Ekavir Prabhu and Madhya-Lila Devi here.
I apologize, we were out of town.
We know you were busy serving Krishna, helping devotees cope with trying to be spiritual in the material world. I thought to read and discuss today from Caitanya-Caritamrita, Madhya-Lila, the two accounts of Lord Caitanya
Recording in progress.
passing through, of course, the Jharikhanda forest, and then also in the forests of Vrindavan. I have noted that the descriptions of Lord Chaitanya with the animals in the forests of Vrindavan is more intimate than the astonishing pastimes with the animals as he passed through Jharikhanda forest on the way to Vrindavan. Of course, Vrindavan is Vrindavan. And so we could expect that there would be more ecstasy. I like the way that Kabiraj Goswami describes that when Mahaprabhu is in Puri, he's in ecstasy. When he's on the road to Mathura, that ecstasy is 10 times more. When he's in Mathura itself, the ecstasy is 100 times more. And then when he's roaming in the forests of Vrindavan, the ecstasy is thousands of times more. So how much ecstasy is ecstasy? And Kaviraj Goswami explains that when Mahaprabhu is elsewhere, just the idea of Vrindavan in his mind puts him in ecstasy. What to speak of when he's actually in Vrindavan? It's so wonderful to approach Radha Krishna and Sri Vrindavan Dham through the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as we explained the other night, that's the royal road. That's the way that such attainment can happen. Otherwise, as we heard from Srila Prabhupada, attaining Radha Krishna Lila is very difficult. People can't even understand Radha Krishna Lila. What speak of attain it? But if you go through the mercy of Sri Sri Gaurnitai, then the goal is achieved, even in this age of Kali. So what happened is that this is Lord Chaitanya's second journey to Vrindavan. As we discussed the other night, the first journey was aborted. He did a U-turn. And we went over the various reasons why he said he came back to Puri without reaching Vrindavan. Once again, he has left for Vrindavan with the blessings of the devotees. They simply asked him to wait until the rainy season is over. Who travels during the rainy seasons? The roads are not fit for traveling. They didn't try to impede him or trick him, lovingly trick him like Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya did on the first attempt to go to Vrindavan. They agreed that Mahaprabhu should bring one associate with him rather than like before when everyone wanted to go with him. So that one person was Balabhadra Bhattacharya. So how is it that Mahaprabhu left this second time? The first time was a huge production, a gala event. The second time, the night before he left, he went to the Jagannath Puri temple and took permission of Lord Jagannath. And then he got up early before everyone else and disappeared into the night. The devotees woke up, searching everywhere for him. But Swarup Damodar told them, no point in searching. He's gone to Vrindavan. And we should allow that to happen. Even though the devotees had given their permission, their blessings, of course, who needs to give permission to the supremely independent, supreme personality of Godhead? But this is all about love. And we discussed that the other night. So even though they had given their permission, yes, you'll do what you want. But if you ask us, we say just stay till the rainy season over. Then you can go. Even though they gave the permission, still when the actual separation hits these devotees, that's another thing. So they all started looking around. Even though they had given permission, they were searching here and there. And Swarup Damodar, as Mahaprabhu's secretary, told them to stop. This time on the journey to Vrindavan, Lord Caitanya didn't take any familiar or main roads. He went on the back way. He went the back way. He didn't want to incur the risk of crowds as what happened the last time. So this is why he's heading through the Jharikhanda forest. He's taking the back road, so to speak, not the main thoroughfare. So let's meditate on the description of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passing through this solitary forest. How do we know that something special is happening? First of all, as he's chanting, the tigers and elephants give way. That lets you know. They know. And so they adjust themselves. Next, we hear that, of course, Mahaprabhu is walking with great ecstasy. Animals are surrounding him. What kind of animals? Packs of tigers, elephants, rhinoceroses, and boars. And Mahaprabhu just passes through them. But as you know, things are going to get even more intense. Meanwhile, what's happening with Mahaprabhu's associate, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, his personal servant? He was afraid. Packs of rhinoceroses, boars, and tigers. But Kaviraj Goswami explains that by the influence of Mahaprabhu, all the animals stood to one side. They let Mahaprabhu and Balabhadra Bhattacharya pass without any incident. Specifically, a tiger was lying directly on the path. And Mahaprabhu is walking, absorbed in ecstatic love. And he happens to what? While walking, he happens to touch the tiger with his foot. And then commands the tiger, Bolo Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. The tiger immediately jumps up and begins to dance. Something to see, a tiger jumping up and dancing, chanting Hare Krishna. And then we hear that another day in that forest, it took a few days to go through that forest, Mahaprabhu is bathing in the river. That's what you do when you wander through the forest. You bathe in rivers, you eat whatever forest veggies there are. Sometimes they would be invited to some forest dweller's home for meals. Sometimes Balabhadra had a small stock of grains he brought with him. They would cook that. So in the river is Mahaprabhu bathing, and a herd of wild elephants come there to drink water. These elephants are described as being maddened. So normally, if you were in the river bathing and a flock of uproarious, maddened elephants approach, you'd be you'd want to get out of there very quickly. And this is all happening while Mahaprabhu is saying his Gayatri mantra. And so the elephants approach him. Remember, these are maddened elephants. And what does Mahaprabhu do? He splashes some water on them and says, Bolo Krishna! Chant Hare Krishna. So we get a description in the purport of the Mahabhagavat platform. A devotee on that platform makes no distinction between friends and enemies. The devotee sees everyone as a servant of Krishna. Tigers, elephants, rhinoceroses, boars. What's the Mahabhagavat thinking? Krishna's in everyone's heart. Krishna's within the heart of the tiger, the boar, the rhinoceros. Krishna's telling these animals, here's a Mahabhagavat. Please don't disturb him. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto matasmritir jnanamapoanam cha. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm seated in everyone's heart. All living entities. That doesn't mean simply humans. I'm there in the core of all living entities. And from me comes the knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So the Mahabhagavata knows that Krishna is dictating in the heart of these wild creatures. And because the Mahabhagavata is completely in harmony with Krishna, he accepts everything as Krishna's will, Krishna's protection. Just like Haridas Thakur inhabiting a cave in which there happened to be a snake. And everyone was very worried. That cave is famous for being the home of a snake, and that's where Haridas Thakur is chanting all day and all night. But Haridas Thakur was not caring for such a concern. He just went on chanting Hare Krishna. And one day the snake just left. Everyone was astonished. So how are we to act on this kind of understanding? Prabhupada writes, those who are neophytes or even a little progressed in devotional service should not try to imitate the Mahabhagavata. Don't go stick your head in the mouth of a tiger. Krishna will dictate in the heart of the tiger not to close its mouth on me. Rather, in other words, instead of imitating the Mahabhagavata, they should only follow in his footsteps. The word anukar means imitating, and anusar means trying to follow in the footsteps. We should not try to imitate the activities of a Mahabhagavat or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Our best efforts should be exerted in trying to follow them according to our ability. The Mahabhagavat's heart is completely freed from material contamination, and he can become very dear even to fierce animals like tigers and elephants. Indeed, the Mahabhagavata treats them as his very intimate friends. On this platform, there's no question of envy. When the Lord was passing through the forest, he was in ecstasy, thinking the forest to be Vrindavan. He hasn't even reached Vrindavan yet he's thinking this Jharikhanda forest is Vrindavan. Not only that, but every time he would see a hill in Jharikhanda forest, he would think, this is Govardhan. Every time he would see a river in Jharikhanda forest, he would think, this is Yamuna. And then, as we discussed the other day, Mora Mana Vrindavana, as Mahaprabhu declared during the Ratha Yatra, my mind is Vrindavan, because in my mind, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna are continually taking place. So we discussed the other day how whom Prabhupada refers to as the eternal Brajavasis, like Srup Damodar, Gadadhar Pandit, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, a long list. They never went physically to Vrindavan, but they're always in Vrindavan. So in this way, as we discussed the other day, we discussed the distinction between physically being in Vrindavan and being in Vrindavan conscious with your consciousness. So Mahaprabhu is in the river. The maddened elephants are there surrounding him. And so he just takes water and he splashes them and begins to chant, Krishna, Krishna. And the elephants began to chant, Krishna, Krishna. They began to dance and sing in ecstasy. Elephants dancing and singing in ecstasy. What a sight. Parameswari Devi, do they still have jungles in Vietnam or it's all destroyed by the war? They have fierce animals in the jungles there? Any tigers? You don't, you don't go walking in the jungle. All right. So just visualize elephants chanting and dancing What else? Some of the elephants fell to the ground, and some screamed in ecstasy. Did anyone scream like an elephant in ecstasy? Kalasur? Elephants scream in ecstasy. David, keep reading. Can you scream like an elephant in ecstasy? Now you can just imagine Balabhadra Bhattacharya, Mahaprabhu's personal assistant, watching all this. So as Mahaprabhu proceeds through the forest, he's chanting very loudly, passing through the jungle, and hearing his sweet chanting. The deer approached him, particularly the does, the female deer. They were surrounding him on both sides, and Mahaprabhu patted them, but not simply patting them. He recited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which we'll discuss a little bit. Danyasma mura matayopi harinya eta ya nanda nandanam upatta vichitra vesham akarnya venu ranitam saha krishna sara pujam dadur virachitam pranayavalokai. This is Bhagavatam, chapter 10, Canto 10, chapter 21, verse 11. It's spoken by the gopis of Braj. Blessed are all these foolish deer, because they have approached Maharaj Nanda's son, who is gorgeously dressed and is playing on his flute. Indeed, both the does and the bucks worship the Lord with looks of love and affection. So why are the gopis commending the deer, both the male deer and the female deer? Why? Because the acharyas explain the gopis are feeling that these male deer and female deer, wife and husband, they're together approaching Krishna, but our husbands won't let us do that. So therefore, how fortunate are these female deer? Their husbands are encouraging them. Yes, go to Krishna, go to Krishna. Whereas our husbands get upset. Of course, that being upset of the gopis' husbands is all staged by Yogamaya to add flavor to Krishna's pastimes. The so-called opposition makes the pastimes more dramatic, more tasty. So that's why the gopis are commending the deer, especially the female deer, the does. How blessed they are, how fortunate they are. They can surround Krishna with their husbands, and their husbands are encouraging. Our husbands aren't like that. So this is the verse that Mahaprabhu recited as the male and female deer surrounded him. Notably, as he's passing through the jungle, 5 or 7 tigers approached him. Now, 7 tigers approaching him while he's surrounded by deer? Doesn't that strike you as very contradictory? I mean, the last place a deer would want to be is where a tiger is. But seeing the tigers and the deer now together following Mahaprabhu, he remembers the land of Vrindavan. Why? Because the tigers and deer are harmoniously coexisting together, following him without any trace of violence or attack or envy. That motivates Mahaprabhu to recite a verse spoken by Lord Brahma in the 13th chapter of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. Yatra Naisarga Durvaira Sahasanri Megadaya Machani Va Jitavasa Garutarut Tarshanadikam. Lord Brahma, this is near the end of the chapter 13, Brahma Vimohana Lila, Bewilderment of Lord Brahma. He says, Vrindavan is the transcendental abode of the Lord. There's no hunger, no anger, or thirst there. Though naturally inimical, human beings and fierce animals live together there in transcendental friendship. So this is Lord Brahma appreciating the transcendental opulence of Vrindavan, where humans and animals who would seem to be always inimical, dangerous for one another, they live together in transcendental friendship. What's a salient proof, a very important proof of that coexistence, blissful coexistence, is Krishna as Makanchora, the butter thief. He's always feeding butter to the monkeys. Devotee care. So the point is that everyone should get what they need and live happily together. But instead of that, what do we get in this age of Kali? Here, I'll read you some statistics. Of the horrors of Kali Yuga. And then we can better appreciate why Lord Brahma is glorifying Vrindavan. Number of animals killed every year in the world. Does anyone have any idea? And this is not including aquatics, not including fish, or whatever creatures people pull out of the ocean or the rivers. This is land animals. Kalasrup, you have any idea? 10 billion. Oh, that's just the USA. No, 83 billion globally. USA is around 9 billion. So here, this is from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. So the yearly global total for chickens is 73 billion killed. Cows, 1.5 billion. Pigs, 1.3 billion. Ducks, 4.3 billion. Geese and fowls, 800 million. Rabbits, 572 million. Turkeys, 617 million. Sheep, 602 million. And goats, 500 million. And the biggest slaughter of animals is China. You may have seen photos of these skyscraper pig residences, 26 stories tall, where pigs are crammed together, bred and raised for slaughter, hacked in together in such atrocious circumstances. 26 stories high, these piggeries are. So the world total is around 83 billion. Some say 93 billion. That's per year. And the USA is around 9 or 10 billion for all the creatures it slaughters. I may have told you before one incident in Florida. Someone who lived on the third floor of a building was on their terrace, and the person had taken a pet dog and was hanging the pet dog over the railing of the terrace like he was going to drop the dog. And the poor dog, was freaking out to the max. And all the neighbors watching were horrified. They called the police. And the police, by the time they came, that person on the terrace had gone somewhere else. So the police did a whole dragnet of the whole neighborhood. So you say, okay, well and good. But how many chickens are killed every day in the USA hanging upside down from a conveyor belt? No one objects. But speak of how many cows are killed, calves are killed directly after being born. So, yes, whoever was treating a dog like that should be punished. But what about the cruelty performed on all these other creatures, especially cows? You'd be shocked to know how many persons so concerned about the ecological situation, climate disaster, they still can't see their way to stopping their meat eating. I remember this intergovernmental organization for climate, which was producing reports every few years and recommendations about what to do about climate change. Intergovernmental Planet on Climate. It said that we hesitate to speak this, but the basic fact is an enormous lessening of climate disruption can happen if people would simply stop their meat diets. We hesitate to say this. And the fact still remains the same. Except for a minority of persons concerned whose concern about the environment translates into changing their diet. Meat eating, especially in overseas, continues to rise. It's a sign in second and third world countries. Meat eating is a sign of you've made it. You're living on high. As they say in the rural areas of the USA, you're living high on the hog. It's a tragedy. I don't think they'll hear this, so I'll say it. I don't think any of my relatives will listen to this. But I have relatives who have gone to the oldest and finest university with program, master's degree in environmental science, and so concerned about the environment. Activists taking non-profit jobs in the city for pushing on urban agriculture and changing whole neighborhoods to solar heating and solar lighting, and forsaking the corporate world for being activist on the ground. I ask, well, what are your eating habits? Well, they call it flexitarian. Sometimes you may not eat meat, other times you will. One of them told me, well, knowing how badly chickens are treated, I figure it's better to eat them. I, I guess the person meant better to kill them and eat them right away than let them live a life of pain. That's the solution. So this observation by Lord Brahma is very important. He's glorifying Vrindavan. He's seen how Krishna treats the cowherd boys, how Krishna treats the cows. In fact, he's seen how Krishna becomes the cows, becomes the cowherd boys to cover over Brahma's chicanery, his mischief. So he's glorifying Vrindavan. It's the transcendental abode of the Lord. There's no hunger, anger, or thirst there. Though naturally inimical, human beings and fierce animals live together there in transcendental friendship. So you remember, the tigers and deers are together following Mahaprabhu through the jungle. So when he says, chant Krishna, Krishna, the tigers and deers together chant Krishna, Krishna and begin to dance. So Balabhadra Bhattacharya is watching all this and he's shocked. You would be shocked also to see tigers and deer dancing and jumping together. But it doesn't stop there. What more? Not only did the tigers and deers jump and dance together, but they began to embrace one another. And touching mouths, they began to kiss. I've heard of this pastime and read it so many times, but never ceases to amaze me. And each time reading it and reciting it, it's ever fresh. And I can see it more and more vividly. The tigers and deers jumping, dancing, touching mouths, kissing. Krishna, Krishna. Mahaprabhu, just like you're smiling, he's the original smiler, Gaur Bhagavan. So he was smiling, watching all the fun. Finally, he left these animals behind as they chanted and jumped and danced and kissed and embraced. Mahaprabhu kept moving. Now various birds, including peacocks, began to follow Mahaprabhu. And they were chanting and dancing. Every creature is maddened by the holy name of Krishna. So when can we become maddened by the holy name of Krishna? We need so many other things, don't we? But we're not through yet. Now it's time for the trees and the creepers. When Mahaprabhu loudly chants, Haribol, the trees and creepers become jubilant to hear his chanting. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains to us that Mahaprabhu once asked Haridas, how will the non-moving creatures benefit from the Harinam Sankirtan? They're immobile living entities, trees and plants. And Haridas Thakur explained that by the loud chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, even the non-moving entities will benefit spiritually. And he explained that if you listen carefully while there's loud kirtan going on, you can hear what seems to be an echo, and that's the kirtan of the non-moving entities. We'll have to try to hear that next time Ekavir Prabhu leads kirtan. We'll try to hear the echo of the non-moving living entities. Of course, that's the chanting of Mahaprabhu. At least we can chant with enough potency that human beings will respond. We read, Haridas Thakur replied that the loud chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra would benefit not only trees and plants, but insects and all other living beings. One should not therefore be disturbed by the loud chanting of Hare Krishna, for it is beneficial not only to the chanter, but to everyone who gets an opportunity to hear. Of course, we shouldn't apply this fanatically. I remember in the early days, in Brooklyn, New York, and also when we went on traveling Sankirtan to other temples, St. Louis, Chicago, Atlanta, we would not consider going out from the temple because it was warm in the temple. Go out on the street right after Mangalarti, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And if the neighbors protested, what would we say? Who knows? This is the proof of the potency of the holy name that is producing such a reaction in them. Those are the days. Not only would we chant loudly, walking up and down the street around the temple, waking up the neighbors, but we'd also liberate their flowers for Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. Obviously, we lacked discretion. Of course, I didn't do those things. So, in summary, all the living entities in the forest of Jharikhanda, whether moving or non-moving, became maddened by hearing the holy name of Krishna vibrated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu was very grateful to Balabhadra Bhattacharya for accompanying him through the forest, because in this way, thousands of persons were not crowding here and there, impeding Mahaprabhu's journey to Vrindavan. He was very grateful. He expressed his gratitude to Balabhadra Bhattacharya. Of course, Balabhadra Bhattacharya humbly responded that this is all your mercy. But Mahaprabhu was showing, even the Supreme Personality Godhead shows gratitude for service rendered. That's another meaning of achyuta, not simply one who never falls under the influence of the material energy, but Krishna's name achyuta means one who never fails in reciprocating with his devotees. Of course, we need to become purified to understand the full scope of Krishna's reciprocation. Just like a little child doesn't know what the parents are doing for him or her. But as the child becomes older, the child realizes if he or she's had a good mother or good father, the parent has sacrificed so much. Those of you thinking to become parents often hear the mantra, life will never be the same. It won't be simply your life anymore. So therefore the child, as he or she matures, realizes with gratitude. So Mahaprabhu, as a Supreme Personality Godhead, Gaur Bhagavan, he's expressing gratitude to Balabhadra Bhattacharya. Thank you for all you've done for me. You've made my trip through the jungle so uneventful, so smooth, so delightful. One comment Kaviraj Goswami makes is that Mahaprabhu did not always manifest his ecstasy. You're hearing about tigers, deer, and birds and peacocks jumping and dancing and chanting. But Mahaprabhu, when there was a great assembly of people around, he would keep his ecstasy concealed. Still, everyone who saw him became a pure devotee simply by seeing and hearing him. But he didn't reveal the full extent of his ecstasy when they happened upon assemblies of people. At the same time, amongst the creatures of the forest, they all chanted and jumped in ecstasy. One point I'd like to focus on today in the purport is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 500 years ago, but it cannot be said that now the potency of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is less than it was in his presence. By hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Parampara system, one can be purified. Therefore, in this verse, it is said, Tatapi Tanra Darshana Shravana Prabhave. It is not that everyone is able to see Krishna or Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu physically. But if one hears about him through books like Caitanya-Caritamrita and through the Parampara system of pure Vaishnavas, there's no difficulty in becoming a pure Vaishnava, free from mundane desires and personal motivations. So that's something, as I said, for us to think about. It cannot be said that now the potency of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is less than when chanted in Mahaprabhu's presence on this earth, present to ordinary vision. The power of the parampara is that by hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through parampara, someone can become purified and become a pure devotee. You may remember the example I gave when I saw Srila Prabhupada in Atlanta, February or so of 1975. I was on traveling Sankirtan, and Prabhupada had been to the Brooklyn Temple, but I was on the road, so we went to see him in Atlanta. And there, the devotees, one of the days, they staged a drama, the Chankazi drama. Everyone knows the Chankazi drama, right? When the ritualistic externalist Hindus were protesting about the chanting of and the kirtan of Mahaprabhu's devotees. They went to the Kazi to complain. This Mahaprabhu is ruining the Hindu religion. He's reciting these mantras out loud in the presence of everyone. And so the actors, Prabhupada's watching the play from the Vyasa. And so the actors reached the part in the Lila, where the Hindus are saying, the problem is that by chanting the mantra out loud to anyone, by chanting Hare Krishna in that way, the potency becomes reduced. And Prabhupada broke into the play immediately. Potency has already increased. They said Hare Krishna. The potency had already increased. Well, he's seeing that. We want that kind of vision. Every What kind of vision is that? Every time someone says Hare Krishna, you can see the potency of the holy name increasing. What do you think of that kind of science, Kalaswarup? Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not physically present now, simply by chanting his holy name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Sri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, people throughout the world are becoming devotees. This is due to the ecstatic chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So we already talked about how every time Mahaprabhu in the Jharikhanda forest would see a hill, he'd think, this is Govardhan. You'd see a river, this is Yamuna River. All right, any questions? Yes.
Um, yeah, I'm wondering on this topic of like you were just saying those statistics, so many animals being killed. So I'm wondering, as devotees, how do you draw the line? In terms because there's so many things, not using plastic, eating organic, all
We have to not lose sight of Krishna. You'll never get to the bottom of the compromises and imperfections of this world. But we try our best without becoming a maniac about it. So that's why, just like with the plastic used on the farm here, wrapping hay bales, plastic mulch for the gardens, we're trying to figure out ways how to get around it. It's very difficult. Agriculture these days means plasticulture. Plastic seed trays. We've already been discussing how to get around using plastic seed trays, and both you and Tarika have concluded that these seed blocking devices that's the way to go. So we're trying. The main thing is we shouldn't forget to chant Hare Krishna. You're not going to make this world perfect, but for the sake of Krishna's pleasure, for the sake of outreach, for the sake of properly respecting Krishna's energy, which is nature, which we're going to try our best. Got a long way to go. Especially with plastic, it's becoming such a known offender. Everyone's becoming quite militant about it. Even nations are passing laws now against single-use plastic. I think they're doing that in New Zealand. It's become one of those single-shot solutions. We'll do this and everything will be all right, or we'll feel better about ourselves when we do this. The comprehensive solution is to become Krishna conscious. But sometimes people will criticize about the misapplication of bhakti and shastra. That you're so worried about your relationship with the divine and your relationship with other human beings, but you forgot about your relationship with animals and nature. They can criticize like that. But here we have at Gita Nagari land, cows, and Krishna and devotees. All of them should be taken care of. Some say that unless human beings, animals, the land, all of nature marches together into the future as one community, there'll be no march at all. The future is very bleak. So Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita, Rasaham Apsukante, I'm the taste of water. Prabhasmi Shashi Suryo, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. But Krishna gets to the root of the situation by saying that everything is his energy and should be offered to him in yajna, gratitude. So real ecological harmony means everyone's always giving. The cows are giving to you, you're giving to the cows. The earth is giving to you, you're giving to the earth. All in glorification of Krishna, all for Krishna's pleasure. Everyone's always giving. That's the Vrindavan attitude. Giving to the devotees, of course. Giving to the land. Not that you just extract from the land. Just like human beings today are more accurately referred to as flesh-covered devices for extracting fossil fuels. It's a more accurate description. So environmentalists will rightly point out that human beings for so long have been so feverishly extracting everything with no concern for the future. Whereas we should be giving to the land to reciprocate for the land giving to us. We should be giving to the animals for reciprocating that the animals give to us. So the idea is that it's all one community. Of course, we will point out that the humans in that one bio community have a special gift of higher consciousness and are meant to use that higher consciousness to realize their relationship with Krishna. Animals can't do that. But part of realizing your relationship with Krishna is, just like we read about in Vrindavan, Krishna feeding the monkeys with butter. All living entities, let all living entities prosper, not I live and you die. Of course, the way this world is, sometimes you have to compromise. You can't find purity on the material platform this day and age. You get rid of all the plastic, there'll be something else. What about the batteries made of cobalt in your electric vehicles? Half the cobalt in the world comes from the Congo, one district in the Congo where people are slaving under horrible conditions, child labor. So you want to stop the fossil fuels, bring in the electric vehicles. But then electric vehicles run on rare earth minerals produced under horrible conditions, or mined under horrible conditions. What are you going to do? Therefore, the ultimate solution is to chant Hare Krishna. Anything else? Yes?
Buddha, you mentioned instead of imitating the Mahabhagavat, we should follow the footsteps. So what does it mean to follow the footsteps?
Follow their instructions. Don't go out into the forest embracing tigers. Who was that devotee of Mahaprabhu who would slap tigers on the cheek? I remember, you reminded me. A devotee asked Prabhupada about whether devotees should take rotten prasad, just like Raghunath Das Goswami would do. He would take remnants of Jagannath prasad that even the cows wouldn't touch. And he would wash it off and eat it. So devotees were asking Srila Prabhupada, well, should we do that? And Prabhupada replied that Krishna is the fire of digestion. That's the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Ham Vaishvarnava. Huh? I am the fire of digestion. So Srila Prabhupada explained that Krishna as a fire of digestion in the pure devotee can digest anything. But unless you're a pure devotee, he may not agree to digest when you're eating rotten food. So that's an example of not imitating. Very good question. Anything else? Any comments? Jagannath Pandit, Prabhu, Ekavir Prabhu, Madhya-Lila Devi.
So there's a lot of controversy right now about just chanting Hare Krishna. In terms of no, I mean everyone knows we need to chant Hare Krishna. However, I was just reflecting on how you've given your life to chanting Hare Krishna Maharaj. At the same time, you are very informative about what's going on in the world, and you take time to really explore that. You take time to research it. You're vested in it, and so in some ways you can be called an activist as you chant Hare Krishna. So there is a controversy that devotees may not always understand how to chant Hare Krishna and utilize their talents in service to Krishna.
They need guidance. You have to know what you're doing and not become overwhelmed. You have to know how to catch the fish without getting wet. So when devotees would present to Srila Prabhupada that, can we preach through psychology, or can we preach through this, or can we preach through that? He wouldn't deny it. He would say, yes, but you have to be expert. You have to know how to walk the line without going too far off and losing sight that the goal is to love Krishna. So I'm not so much into all that. I'm really just trying to read about love of Krishna and how to love Krishna. But this other stuff, it kind of comes to me easy. I'm not over-endeavoring, so to speak. I'm not straining. It's stuff I read the New York Times maybe I have a program every other day. No, 3 times a week. No more than a half hour. Looking for things like that you mentioned. That's not much. Hour and a half a week. Not every day. can't take it every day. Oh, that's how would I ever read Caitanya-Caritamrita? So you have to know how to use these things in Krishna service, and that takes guidance. Otherwise, yes, it's true, devotees can just go too far off into the mundane problems and mundane solutions and lose sight of presenting that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. You may not do that immediately, but sooner or later you have to do that. So often devotees may argue about so-called direct or indirect preaching. I say do both for fun and profit. Why make this false dichotomy, Do both. So at least that's my approach. On Monday I may be indirect, and Tuesday I'm direct. At some point you've got to deliver the goods. Whether you do that immediately, some are all for that. Just straight away tell them, Sarvadhamam Brajata, Vami Kamsadanam Braja. Others say, well, no, maybe 1 year later. I don't get into these controversies, as we say down under. Not controversy, but controversies. I don't get into it. It drains your energies, and just do something. Just get going. So, since you mentioned my insignificant self, like I say, in my public talks, the first 20 minutes I could be indirect, and the last 20 minutes I can be direct. I don't think it's productive to criticize anyone who's trying to do some kind of outreach. I'm so happy that they're trying. And everyone will develop their own style. The main thing is the sincerity of the heart. Krishna's in our heart. He knows what our sincere desire is. And Krishna's in the heart of the person that you're trying to present bhakti to. So the way the dynamic works is that when you're sincere in presenting Krishna to someone else, however you're doing it, Krishna in your heart notices. And then Krishna in the heart of the person you're interacting with dictates to that person. You should listen. You should do this. So we're working with the super soul, actually. And a main mistake of devotees could be that they forget that they're working in partnership with the super soul. Book distributors know this well, that you approach someone, you think this person would never take a book, and the person shocks you by being so receptive. And then you walk up to someone who you're sure, oh, this person looks so receptive, and the person's totally not interested. So as you mature in bhakti, in your outreach, you learn to work in tandem with the super soul. And that's when your outreach starts to become even more exciting. Anything else? Yes.
Gurudev, in the last class you talked about the external versus internal Vrindavan. I just wanted to ask, is there any difference between the internal Vrindavan and the internal Gita Nagari?
Yes. Yes. Stick around and you'll see how Radha Damodar, his presence is felt everywhere. This is Radha Damodar's property. I've seen sometimes people come here, so enthusiastic to stay here, and then mysteriously they go. Other persons come here and you think that person will never stay here. And they stick. They stick it out. I've seen that. It's not in every case that the deities are personally involved. But as Jananivas, my godbrother Prabhu, once told me, he's the one who Prabhupada instructed to train up all the pujaris in the world. He said, the deities have their people. Just like a family man or family lady's got their family, their people. Deities have their people. Are we impersonalists that we can't understand that? They got their people, and their people, the deities don't let go. I have one disciple, Kasturika Devi, and she's been trapped in Vrindavan for, I don't know, must be 10 years now. And she's always trying to get away, but she can't get away. So my god sister Devi Shakti Davies commented that everyone is trying to get into Vrindavan, and here she's trying to get away. And she can't get away. So finally, I think after 10 years, she just gave up. Gave up trying to get away. So it can be like that, not in every case. But just like you have your personal desires, personal hopes, and personal capacities, so does Krishna. I don't want you here. Or, you can't get away. It's very, very subtle. But Jananivas Prabhu, who I respect as, and Prabhupada certified as the leader of all the pujaris in the world, he said that's the deities have their own people.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to some of the faith, your class yesterday, and you mentioned at least 3 or 4 times, maybe 3 times, about permission. You were emphasizing that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
emphasized it again today.
Mm.
So, what do you, I understand what you meant in relationship to the pastime. However, what do you mean practically?
We should seek the blessings of the deities and the Vaishnavas as much as possible.
Blessings.
Blessings.
How is that different from permission?
It's a very cultured and refined point. Mahaprabhu, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet he's asking permission. All the devotees know that he can do whatever he wants, but there's a bond of love.
That's the bond of love.
Yeah. We're such ruffians, you know. We don't. It's hard for us to understand this point. I'm going to do what I damn feel like doing. What's it to you? It's my business. Get the hell out of my life. I want to go to Vrindavan, I just take off and go to Vrindavan. Yeah. But here Mahaprabhu is asking permission of the devotees. He's asking permission of Lord Jagannath. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is asking permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Can I go to Vrindavan? And the devotees, as you might have heard me explain, they schemed. Prachapuruja was so unhappy. I've heard he's leaving. He wants to go somewhere. Rananda Roy, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, do something. So they invented various impediments. Oh, wait till Rath Yatra. Oh, wait till Dol Yatra. Oh, rainy season. This went on for 2 whole years. Finally, Mahaprabhu said, please. I would really like to go. And in fact, my desire to visit Vrindavan has simply increased. In spite of all these impediments. So the devotees felt a little embarrassed that they had. But you see, it's all out of love. And I was making the point that they were fearing the separation. They were fearing they couldn't handle it. Some of them, when Mahaprabhu left that first time in his attempt to go to Vrindavan, like Gadadhar Pandit, eventually saying, when Mahaprabhu said, don't go any further with me, go back to Puri, Gadadhar Pandit collapses unconscious on the ground. So when have you ever done that, I asked. Someone is leaving and you collapse on the ground. That's the intense feeling of separation felt by these devotees. So you can't materially judge them for impeding Mahaprabhu's attempt to go to Vrindavan. It was all out of love, and he knew it. Anything else? Yeah.
How does serving Mahaprabhu in Dasyaras, just like Bhagavad-Acharya, open the door to other rasas with Krishna?
Try it. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined. Krishna is very strict, and Radha Krishna Lila is difficult, very difficult to attain. But Lord Chaitanya is Krishna giving Krishna away. So what more do you need to know?
Well, that was a question online. Yeah.
Why is over here it says signed out?
Well, I'm controlling it from here, but it's still logged on.
All right, here, the engineer.
So my last question, since we won't be able to be here tomorrow.
Can we impede you?
That's your last
After Janmashtami, you can go.
So I mean, probably this question may go inside, and maybe it's theoretical, perhaps, I don't know. However, that bond of love, in those pastimes, those devotees, they loved each other, and they loved Lord Chaitanya. And throughout, when we read CC, we can at least theoretically hear that. However, how do we develop that with ourselves?
You got to beg for it. It's a gradual process. You got to beg for it. It's not a material skill, as I explained the other night. It's not a material social skill, like in that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You have to be divinely empowered. Mahaprabhu was so divinely empowered that he could have tigers and deer embracing, kissing, and jumping and dancing while chanting Hare Krishna. At least we can beg to be empowered enough to deal with human beings and especially to deal with devotees. We have to really want to do that. And it takes some tolerance, it takes some perseverance, humility, ability to tolerate misunderstandings. It's very painful to be misunderstood. Sometimes one has to swallow the soap and blow bubbles. That's what Trinadapi Sunichena means. Tororeva Sahishnuna. More tolerant than a tree, lower than the straw on the street. This is what was especially attractive about Rupa and Sanatan, as Mahaprabhu explains to the devotees upon his return from attempting to go to Vrindavan. He said, they're so materially qualified, yet they actually think themselves lower than a straw in the street. This attracts Krishna, and therefore Krishna will deliver them. Devotees that we have difficulty with, there's always someone who misunderstands you, misperceives you. All you can do is pray to Radha Damodar, somehow or other. How can I bridge this gulf? What else can you do? Can't give up. You may even, that doesn't mean you have to put your head in the tiger's mouth, or that doesn't mean you have to be around someone who's denigrating you. You can keep your distance, but at the same time, you're always praying to Krishna. How can I some or other touch this devotee's heart? So now you've announced you won't be here tomorrow, so we're all praying, how can we keep Vrindavana and Ekavir here? But we have Devaki Priti coming and Jagannath Pandit coming, so we'll soldier through somehow.
Maharaj, today is a very special day. It's actually the birthday of Jagannath Pandit Prabhu. And then also on Friday is another special day, the birthday of Madhya-Lila.
Well, it's Madhya-Lila on Friday. Are you going to be here?
Actually, we have on Fridays, we do like a 4-hour course online.
Is that your way of saying you're not going to be here?
Also tomorrow, that's what's happening. We have back and back classes.
Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday.
You just celebrated your birthday. That's right. It wasn't Madhya-Lila, it was you. Yes, I remember. I sent you birthday greetings from wherever I was. When was that?
That was July 26th.
July 26th. Where was I? I was in New York. Well, Jagannath Pandit Prabhu, how old will you be? 21.
Add 36 to that.
What's the total?
57.
Huh?
57.
57. That's tomorrow? Today. Well, we all express our gratitude for your presence and hope that you never take birth again in the material world. Of course, taking birth for Krishna's service, that's not a material presence in this world. So if Krishna wants you to take birth again in this world for his pleasure, we'll accept that. But otherwise, don't do it. So those are my official, heartfelt birthday greetings for Jagannath Pandit Prabhu.
Hello.
You all can offer your individual greetings to him upon the end of class today. If you want, you can sing this song for him, but I prefer the heartfelt expression. But after we end, you can go up and express your thanks for his presence. He started the day off in Mangal Arti this morning. That was this morning? Yeah. You didn't bring your daughter with you. Too early, huh? Anything else?
Actually, she used to drag me to Mangal.
Huh?
She used to drag me to Mangal.
Used to. It'd be wonderful to see Devaki Priti first thing in the morning, like the rising of the sun. So tomorrow we're going to do another forest pastime, but this time it'll be Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu in the forest of Vrindavan, conversing with parrots and becoming lost in ecstasy, seeing the bluish neck of peacocks. Cows licking his body, deer licking his body. Just think if you were a deer licking the body of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. Thank you all for coming. Quickly surround Jagannath Pandit with birthday wishes. Don't let him get away.
They already did.